Let's try that instead. There we go. That sounds a little bit better, right? All right. So some of you kind of chiming in now just to let us know that you have indeed felt an earthquake here this morning. So for those of you who are with us, this was a currently estimated to be magnitude 3.9 quake. Originally thought to be a magnitude 4.1 quake, just off the coast of Maine, just off of York, Maine. So we can actually show you what's going on behind me here. And you can see it was just revised to a 3.9. The original thought was that this was a 4.1 just off of York. Now 3.9 is the latest estimate that comes in from the United States Geological Survey team. It's a pretty big earthquake by New England standards, no question about that. We don't get them that big around here very often. Sometimes you get a magnitude 2, sometimes you get a 2.5, but you don't often see one that's right around a 4. So this one, we've already had reports from you that it was felt all the way down to the South Shore and all the way down through the Boston area, stretched out through much of New Hampshire, of course, into Maine for that matter as well. Let me see if I can go up and bring for you the browser and give you a little bit of idea for what's happening in terms of some of the reports that are coming in. It may take me just a moment to actually figure out what I'm doing for you, but nonetheless, we'll show you what's been coming in with that report of the earthquake, and I'll switch things over. There we go. So this is again where the earthquake was located, just off of York Harbor, Maine. So it is in the ocean. This does raise the question of whether or not there would be any concern with tsunami development as well. So we will see whether or not we have anything that's come out from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, which oversees the Atlantic for that matter as well. Yep, there's an information statement that's already come out for the East Coast because of this quake. So why don't we go ahead and read that information statement? Tsunami information statement for the U.S. East Coast, Gulf of Mexico, states, and eastern Canada. No tsunami danger from this earthquake. So again, this is a recent advisory that's been out 10:26 a.m., about 12 minutes ago, from the Tsunami Warning Center, saying there's no concern for a tsunami in along the coast of Maine. We've had earthquakes like this before that have taken place out over the ocean just outside of New England. And we do sometimes end up getting these micro tsunamis that occur, especially when you get right along the coastline of Maine and New Hampshire. We have some of our inlets and sounds, and sometimes we do see small amounts of water that come pouring in as a result. So it's not impossible we see some sort of a micro tsunami out of it. But at least in terms of anything kind of large scale, not something that is concerning to the Tsunami Warning Center right now. Here's the Did You Feel It map. So this is something where folks can go to the United States Geological Survey team and can enter. I'm realizing you're not seeing it, so let me bring it up. There you go. Can enter whether or not they have felt any shaking, and certainly there is at least a light to very light shaking that was felt across the Boston area down to Providence. You see that also stretched out to the Lakes region of New Hampshire. And you pick up a little bit more in the way of shaking as you get closer to the epicenter itself. This is really just something that folks are starting to realize. We're hearing from folks that were wondering, I thought it was a truck when it went by. Danielle said, that was an earthquake. I said, I think it was a truck. We continued on with what we were doing, and then we realized now, as your reports came in, and we saw the U.S. Geological Survey team and what they had to say, that there was indeed an earthquake. So again, magnitude 3.9 is the magnitude on this one, a depth of about 13 kilometers or so. It's a fairly deep earthquake, certainly, but nonetheless, in this case, what you'd most often be seeing and hearing about is going to be things like damage to foundations. That's a possibility for homes that are particularly along the coastline when you get along the coast of Maine. So that is a possibility. We may start hearing about that. You may start to hear from some coastal Maine communities about items that have been knocked off of shelves, because again, a 3.9 is not necessarily a small quake by New England standards. You might remember we had one that was just over a 4 in the mid-Atlantic years ago, and we felt that clear as day up here in New England when that came through. So a 3.9 this close to home, certainly something that I think we'll probably end up finding out there are at least some ramifications from, whether it's going to be foundation cracks or pictures knocked off walls or things of that nature. But at this point, kind of standing by and waiting to see whether or not we get any reports coming in of folks who are reporting any type of damage or anything like that. But right now, it's just the fact that it's kind of a talker. Everybody felt it as it rumbled through. Again, the time on this earthquake was, let's see, it was a 9:22 this morning. So 10:22 this morning was the time that this one rumbled through. 10:22 this morning, found just off the coast of Maine, just off of York Harbor, for that matter. If we zoom in a little bit, you'll see here the Isle of Shoals. You seeing it on your screen? No, I need to bring it up for you. All right, here's the Isle of Shoals, and there's Kittery. and then that epicenter is right where you see that star. So the epicenter of the earthquake just southeast of York Harbor, just east of Portsmouth Harbor. Again, the Tsunami Warning Center has issued a statement saying that there is no concern with a tsunami. So if you're watching us right now and you're worried about that at the coastline, the answer is no, not on a large scale. The only thing I mentioned a short time ago is we do have a history in New England of developing micro tsunamis, which can be these little surges of water that come into our bays, harbors, sounds, inlets, particularly some of the smaller ones that face directly in toward the epicenter. So this is something you'd be watching for example, around the Rachel Carson National Wildlife Refuge. This is something you'd be watching for in York Harbor in particular, right? Because certainly when you get that epicenter that was just outside of Murray Rock and you send some of the shock waves off to the north and west, it's not impossible that you're going to see a micro tsunami. Even the Piscataqua River, something you'd watch. You say, what is a micro tsunami, right? So essentially, it would be just a small kind of surge of water that would come in off of the epicenter of the earthquake. It wouldn't qualify as a tsunami on a larger scale, which is why the Tsunami Warning Center is saying don't worry about it. There's not going to be anything large scale, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some at least local changes that would appear to be strong tidal changes in water, but actually are thrown off. All right, getting reports from folks who are letting us know that you've heard from this now. We have a report to our contact at 1 Degree Outside email from Chris in Waltham saying, just felt an earthquake. Where can I report this sort of thing in the future? Well, Chris, you did a great job. You reported it to our contact form, and it came through on the email. We appreciate that. You can also let us know through all weather observations reports at 1degreeoutside.com, or, of course, through the Send to Us tab on our app. You can always get us that way as well. We are monitoring this stuff all the time. So you find a way to get a hold of us, we will get it. So, Chris, thanks for the report there on the earthquake rumbling in Waltham. Also hearing from Shannon, who says earthquake as well. So that don't know the location for you. But as you continue to see these updates, you certainly can let us know via Twitter. You can find us the number 1 Degree Outside. We are also on Facebook. And you'll find us there as well. You can send us a message that way, comment on a post, anything like that, and we see it when it comes through. So there's a lot of ways to get a hold of us on Blue Sky for that matter as well. And again, as I just mentioned, both through the Send to Us tab on our app and also via email. So again, if you're just kind of tapping in here to see what's going on, welcome. It's good to have you here. What we're looking at right now is an earthquake that occurred, and I'm just seeing if there's any of you that are on right now and contributing on any of our chats. We've got about 318 of you that are watching on our Twitch live stream right now. We've got about another 17 that are tuned in on YouTube. So we'll see if we can get the chats going there. I'm pulling them up now to see what some of this is you might have to say. We appreciate everybody who's been able to chime in. I'm switching to the YouTube chat to see if you've got anything there. And let's see. Was in the restroom. The shower door started rattling, says Russ. Felt a light vibration in the floor tile as well. Went straight to social media if I was imagining things, and then to the USGS report. And that's out of Weymouth. And you're not alone, Russ. We do have a number of folks who have reported in that they certainly have been feeling the shaking all the way down to the South Shore. I'll get you back to the map of that here in just a moment and show you where it's been felt. To everybody who's chiming in and watching right now, again, this was a magnitude 4.1 in the initial estimate. It's over my shoulder. It was just outside of York Harbor, Maine, although it was revised down upon further review from the U.S. Geological Survey team to a 3.9. So what they're doing there is they're taking all the different seismograms from across New England and they're cross-referencing them to get a good feel for exactly how strong the shaking was and how strong the earthquake was. So the preliminary thing they need to do is get the word out, and that's what they did. Within moments, they were able to say, all right, we reviewed this. It was a quake. We believe it was 4.1. As they get more information from all the different seismograms across both New England and the Northeast, they're able to kind of not only triangulate, but they get more than just a few locations. They get them all, and they put them together, and they'll continue to revise this. So it may go up, it may go down, but nonetheless, 3.9 is where we stand on the current estimate. Frank chiming in, I felt it in Haverhill. Frank, thank you very much for the report there. We appreciate it. We can take you through a little bit of a tour again to give you a better feel for exactly how this thing all came together. So what I'll try and do is pull up the browser window and get us going on the earthquake information from the USGS so you can see it for yourself. Let's go ahead and switch over. That blue dot is where the earthquake was, again, just outside of York Harbor, Maine. Statement out of the Tsunami Warning Center is that we do not need to worry about a large-scale tsunami. The one thing I added is just based upon New England history, you may get some micro-tsunamis, which are small shifts of water going on around York Harbor or even at the mouth of the Piscataqua River. That certainly is a possibility for us around Portsmouth Harbor. But nonetheless, magnitude on this one on the order of 3.9. Let's go ahead and take you to another map. I want to show you the zoomed-in view. So this is Murray Rock. For those of you who are familiar with the marine community, just off of Kittery Point, that's where you find Murray Rock, and just outside of that is where you find the epicenter. This is north of the Isle of Shoals, which shows up when you get just off the New Hampshire coastline, and again, just outside of York Harbor. So did you feel it? Yes, you did. Let's go back to that map and see exactly who felt it where. I'm going to go back, and we'll see the felt it reports that have come in. Here we go. Let's update this because I showed it a little while ago, but I'm sure, yeah, it's been updated quite a bit. They've zoomed the view in, which is too bad because what they do is they determine based on the kind of frequency of the reports and how packed tight they are, what they want to do for a view. The only reason I say it's too bad is because we're getting reports coming all the way back from northern New Hampshire and all the way down to Providence, Rhode Island. So at some point, maybe that map will zoom out just a little bit more. But nonetheless, you can see just about everybody is filled in, almost every town across the Portland area, the Lewiston area, through Concord, the Lakes region, the Boston area, the Worcester area, all the way through the South Shore, the Cape, all the way to Provincetown, again, down through Providence, everybody having some sort of weak to light shaking, moderate shaking felt and reported right along the New Hampshire seacoast. You say, well, how is this reported moderate versus light? It all just has to do with folks that are submitting the reports on what they felt, what they saw, what they heard, and then the USGS kind of translates that into what that would be in terms of shaking. We can zoom in the interactive map, and this gives an idea for the large radius that it's been felt. So you'll notice that even up around Montpelier, Vermont, there was some shaking that was felt up to Augusta. Now, you do run into the granite through New Hampshire, which sometimes puts the brakes on being able to feel these quakes, but not when it's about a 4.0 or so, a 3.9 quake. That's a big enough one that you feel that throughout a lot of New England. You can see northeast Connecticut now, western Mass has felt it as well, and then certainly the closer you get to the epicenter, the stronger the shaking was. The Boston metropolitan area feeling this too. If you're just checking in, this is the Tsunami Warning Center update that they have, so I'll go ahead and I'll take a look at it again. It's still the same exact statement that we showed you a short time ago, but again, if you're just joining us, want to make sure that you see it in its entirety and you get an idea for what it says. And if you can't see it or it's a little hard to read right there, no problem. Let me go ahead and read it to you. Basically, it says that the tsunami information statement, no advisory, no watch, no warning, says that there is no tsunami danger from this earthquake. There's the initial estimate of 4.1 magnitude. But again, as I told you, it's been revised down to a 3.9. But they do say also the following parameters based on rapid preliminary assessment, and the changes may occur to that assessment. Well, the change has already taken place to the magnitude, but in terms of the tsunami, generally what they're doing here, just so you know, is they're looking and saying, okay, historically, we don't have any indication that a tsunami should develop. So they're looking, and now look at this revised down over my shoulder to 3.8. So you brought it down again. USGS continues to review. It's gone from 4.1 to 3.9, now down to a 3.8 as they continue to get more information. But the Tsunami Warning Center works almost entirely off of history. So if they're looking at this saying historically we don't get anything, that is true, although admittedly we don't have a lot of historical record that we go off of here. We've gotten earthquakes in New England for hundreds of years, some of the bigger ones back in the 1700s. But nonetheless, this is certainly something where there's a limited historical record, and that's why I say typically we do see some sort of mini tsunami, which is not necessarily a large-scale one and nothing you have to be scared of, but it's something where, the boats in the harbors will find a pretty large shift in water that'll come in on a short notice. All right, just taking a look now at the seismogram that's out of the Weston Observatory. Boy, is that clear as day, huh? This was the shaking when it was felt at 10:22 this morning. Went right off the charts there, so to speak. But nonetheless, it's not just the Weston Observatory that recorded. I'm sure we could go to any number of these other observatories and we would see similar ones. Some of it is, I hesitate to switch. I'm going to go ahead and try it, though. Here we go. This is out of Vermont at the Crossett Brook School in Vermont. It's working on loading. There we go. And you can see really big spike there just shortly after the time of the quake, which was about 10:22 to 10:23. So took just a short time for the vibration to get up to Vermont. And this is exactly what the USGS, United States Geological Survey team, is doing. They're going through this and looking at all the different seismograms. The only reason I sometimes hesitate to go through them is because they're not always all working. So sometimes you go to one. There's Westport, though. Westport, Connecticut certainly saw this one, felt this one as well, right? So just after about 24 past the hour, you got that big spike showing up in Westport. But obviously you got the beginning starting to show up at about 23 past. And remember, it was about 22, 23 past when we actually had the earthquake occur. We can keep going through some of these, and you see them showing up everywhere. This is the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Again, big spike that shows up here as well. So really doesn't matter where in the Northeast you were. Just about everybody was able to feel this quake along the seismic network. One other thing we can do is we can put them all together and do it into a map. Looks like this one hasn't necessarily been updated yet, as best I can tell, which is fine. So back over to the map, we'll go where I was telling you about with the epicenter of this at Portsmouth. So Danielle's with us here too. So let's go ahead and bring you in. And so what do you have here for? And you'll be we'll bring you up on camera as well. But I know you've been seeing folks kind of chiming in to us here at 1 Degree Outside and on social media. What do we got?
I'm just impressed that I felt it myself. That's my first earthquake that I've ever felt. A lot of reports coming in, felt it in Shirley, felt two small shakes in Brewster, felt it here in Scituate and Nashua. I saw my dresser shaking a little bit. I've been looking around, no reports of damage, just everybody feeling it across New England.
Yep, just getting more emails that are coming in as well. Let's see, what do we have? We've got Grace, who says, felt it in Kennebunk, Maine. Makes sense, Grace. You were right near the epicenter, just outside of York Harbor. Julie chimes in, felt the earthquake in Truro, Mass. We have widespread reports that it was felt when you get to the Outer Cape. Another report coming in from New Jersey, feeling it down in New Jersey. So we told you that some of the feels like reports had seemed to have stopped in Rhode Island and Connecticut for a bit, but now getting confirmation now that that New Jersey is in as well. This was at let's see, we've also got Berwick, Maine, and North Berwick Noble High School. So Berwick, Maine, North Berwick Noble High School, all reaching out to us, Danielle, via contact at 1degreeoutside.com. You can also get us where we always have our weather reports come in, reports at 1degreeoutside.com, on email, of course, any of our social media as well.
And for those of you that are on the chat right now, too, tuning in Franklin, felt it in Newburyport, sounded like a big truck going by, which is what you thought, too. I mean, you had that, kind of felt like it, felt it in Scituate, Mass, sounded like a train, actually, in Bradford, so a lot of reports coming in. Feeling it out there. We had some on Twitter, too, which I know you're checking out right now. So hi to those that are joining on the live stream right now. Yes, it was an earthquake that you did feel a short time ago. Magnitude 3.8, originally 4.1, but the USGS now downgrading that just a bit, just off the coastline of Maine.
That's right. Looking at I think you can see our Twitter feed here, I believe. And so I think I've got that on the live stream. So Chatham Fish Pier felt the quake at 10:24 in Chatham. Very good. Small rumble in Waltham. Excellent. International team was on a call with me, Chris says, shared it with them. Fantastic. So, again, if you're just kind of checking in and just seeing what's going on, this was originally a 4.1 magnitude estimate, as Danielle mentioned. We talked earlier about the fact that as more and more information comes in, the United States Geological Survey team does a great job of revising it constantly to try to get the exact kind of estimate on what's been going on. There's a lot of really neat things you can see if you go to earthquake.usgs.gov, and we're not all about owning the information. It's the beauty of being a digital outfit, is we can tell you some of the cool places that you might want to go and you might want to check out. So earthquake.usgs.gov. You can peruse their site, check it out, and you'll see a lot of different kind of neat offerings that they have. Not only the Did You Feel It map, which I'm a big fan of because you can see just how far it was felt, although they've kind of zoomed in the map pretty significantly here. But there's also some really neat things like Moment Tensor. And so basically you look at this and you say, okay, so with regard to the fault and with regard to where the earthquake happened on the fault, where does that line up? This is really cool sciencey stuff. But you know what? It takes some of the mysticism out of earthquakes, and it takes some of the mysticism out of the science behind it. So if you have time and it's something that you want to learn more about, you could really get lost for hours on end at earthquake.usgs.gov. You'll also find some of the historical fault lines that occur through the Northeast and through New England. And with that, you actually can go back and link to some of the previous events, some of our big events in history. I mentioned 1700s, but you can go back and link to some of the previous ones as well to get a really good feel for what's happened around here. What do you got, Danielle?
I was just saying that the last earthquake, too, that some of you may have felt was back in the spring, in April. Remember, we had that 4.8 magnitude that was down in New Jersey, so that might have been the most recent one that you have felt that was kind of a similar magnitude.
I don't remember it like this.
I don't either. I didn't feel that one. I was kind of bummed.
Yeah, and when you would ask me, was it was that an earthquake? I was like, I don't think so. I think it was a truck. But admittedly, the monitor was going back and forth.
I felt it in my chair.
Yeah, that's right. So those of you who are checking in right now and also felt it, we're with you. We hear you. We wanted to make sure to get up right away to give you an update. At this point, though, look, I think the biggest thing, and we mentioned this earlier, but if you just joined in, one of the big things, let's see, we felt it at Berry Hill Farm in Upton, Mass. Thank you, Art, for the report there. Let's see, we've got felt it for 3 seconds in Brentwood, New Hampshire. That's a pretty good shaking that was going on there. Meanwhile, a lot of schools are starting to come out with statements saying that everything's good at their schools, but we're seeing that coming in from schools around New England now as well. So again, that's it's all part of the kind of the drill for New England earthquakes, right? We don't get that stuff very often. So when we do, it's something that a lot of people react to pretty quickly. In terms of damage, we're not hearing of anything at this point. The only thing that I would say, Danielle, is that a lot of times when you get an earthquake of this magnitude, and it is so close to shore with that epicenter being just north of the Isle of Shoals, to find out about some cracked foundations, things of that nature, especially in our coastal communities of New Hampshire and Maine, wouldn't shock me at all. To have some sort of a video come out where folks show something falling either off a shelf or show, that there was something knocked over in the hutch or came down off the wall, that wouldn't surprise me either, because a 4.1, now 3.9, 3.8 is a pretty decent quake by New England standards. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Let's see. Do we have any other? I didn't mean to put ourselves right there on the thing. I was just looking to see if we had any other chats that were coming in that we should be aware of that folks have to chime in on.
Haven't seen any yet.
Okay.
Yeah, there's actually a camera in Stage Neck Inn in York Harbor Beach that showed a little bit of a shake.
Oh, just a little bit
a
there,
little shake.
Okay.
Right off the coastline.
Okay, gotcha.
Let's see.
Gotcha. Just checking out our chat now here as well to see if we've got anybody else that we need to make sure we acknowledge. But we appreciate you checking in, and we hope that this has been helpful for you. I think probably what we can do is this will continue to replay on a number of the platforms, so folks will get the information if they're looking for it. If you have any more reports, if you get reports, for example, of any damage that was done, and there's the Boston Dad moderate. Everybody's got something to say. Matt, a 3.8 at that depth will not cause damage. Just won't. Sorry. So we'll see. But nonetheless, I find that every time that I get cocky enough to think I know, sometimes nature proves me wrong. So you may be right. Absolutely. I'm not cocky enough to tell you you're not. But I guess we'll find out over time.
Someone's saying aftershocks, expecting any of those. A lot of times we can see them, but they're typically much weaker.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. A lot of times you can get them, but you're right. It's not usually to the same extent. So,
exactly.
But nonetheless, as we continue to get anything new, we'll bring it to you. We don't want to take up more time of yours than we have to for anything that when we don't have new information coming in. But just to recap, magnitude 3.8 quake just off of York Harbor, Maine, and at least right now, no reports of anything really except for folks feeling it across the area. All right, stay with us. 1 degree out.